All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of the broadcast. This is the Tuesday, February 28th, 2017 edition of the Global Reality right here on the Global Reality Radio Network with me, your host, Josh Reeves. Thank you very much again for joining us, being here for another show. Man, oh man, it's been the last three shows have been doozies. A lot to say on these subjects, and I've got another something else to lay on you today that relates to what we talked about on yesterday's show. So strap in and get ready for this. Man, oh man. Some of you may have already figured this out on your own based on if you've heard yesterday's show. But if you haven't, you're in for a treat. So we'll reveal that here in just a bit here on the show. TheGlobalReality.com is my website. That's TheGlobalReality.com. We've got all of our stuff available up there for purchase. All the ways to support our work can be found there at the website. And I know, I apologize, a lot of people think I haven't had shows in like 3 or 4 years because there's like old updated shows in there. I just don't have a regular webmaster has time to stay on top of stuff every day, and I don't have time to stay on top of it either. I apologize for working on getting it fixed and getting it upgraded here in the near future, so please be patient. But we have less than 24 hours now left on our fundraiser. This is our fundraising week to cover all our operating costs here for the network. We do not have started this network back in December 2009 to because I'm just never going to sell dick pills or Jew gold or any of that, garbage snake oil here on the show. And our model has always been to, because I used to do 4-hour radio shows a day, and I started adding it up after commercials. I was doing like 2 hours a day. So you mean I'm doing 2 hours a show, and the other 2 hours I'm sitting there on ass with commercials playing, waiting for them to stop so I can start again? That's bullshit. So that's why my show has been shortened over the past. I don't do as many shows, maybe like an hour and a half or something. But if it's an hour and a half show with commercials on any network that has commercials, that would be a 3-hour radio show. So you're getting, I'm not kidding, man. Excuse me. So yeah, that's our model here. But it requires that everybody out there support our work and make contributions. And please go and do that at the website, theglobalreality.com. And also the links here in all the YouTube videos in there. If you use the banner for the that we use every month, that has the Go Get Funding February 2017 monthly operating cost budget, you can only use PayPal with that. If PayPal's not a problem for you, then that's fine. If you can't use PayPal, then the way you can contribute and still be in the running for the prizes and all that is to just use the donate button at my website. Scroll down, it's on the right hand side of the page, and you can use that. You don't have to it's through PayPal still, but you don't have to enter any PayPal account information to use it or even have an account. You can just use a credit card, debit card, and if you don't have a bank account, you can get a prepaid debit card and use it that way as well, or you can just send me the number, however you want to do it. We put up the this month's prize pack, the highest contributor, minimum $300 contribution to be in the running for that. It's a $500 retail value prize pack. It's insane. It's a massive Herkimer diamond, golden healer, a big chunk of black tourmaline, and an amazing pendant that has some of those same minerals in it as well. It has Herkimer diamond, black tourmaline, pearl, and black onyx, and it's fantastic. You can see the pictures up now on our Facebook pages for theglobalreality.com, or the Global Reality Radio Network Facebook page, and the Josh Reeves Radio Talk Show Host Filmmaker Explorer page as well on Facebook. So if you haven't added us over there, be sure and go over there and give us an ad. I don't do Twitter, so that's the extent of the social. It's as far as I'll go into that realm of social networking, because I just use it to. It's a great way to get out instant information to people who are followers, and we'd like you all to go over there and like us on Facebook so you can keep up with stuff, new stuff when it comes out, and new shows. Like if I record a show and it's uploaded, and you have a subscription, usually I think you get a notification about it, but in case you don't, you can go right there and boom. As soon as the show is uploaded, it gets posted on the Facebook pages. So again, we are now at the red alert critical stage, folks, and we need everybody to chip in and contribute so we can reach our goal 100% by 3 p.m. Central Standard Time on Wednesday, and the highest contribution will win that amazing prize pack. You're going to be channeling entities and opening your third eye, and all the while staying grounded with the black tourmaline, blocking out frequencies from electromagnetic waves from computers and cell phones. Man, that's a hell of a fucking pack right there. That's a that's a powerful. I'm telling you, I don't say this very often about the prize packs we give away, and they're always nice every month. I can guarantee that. But man, this month, woo! Yeah, it'll be channeling entities in no time. You might even fuck a fat bitch or two. Wasn't it? That old Dave Chappelle sketch where he's did the Sam Adams commercial. I'll have a Sam Adams. I'll have a Sam Jackson. Good motherfucking choice, motherfucker. he says something that always cracks me up. He says, buy my beer. It'll get you fucked up. You'll be fucking fat bitches in no time. You might even fight a nigga or two. Just cracks me the fuck up every time. Yeah, that's kind of the way I sell this prize pack up this month. You'll be have it going out. So that's a great thing about. Well, I mean, you got to watch what you use quartz with when it comes to crystals, especially if you're using moldavite. Man, I've seen because quartz just amplifies everything. So if you're somebody that's not sensitive, especially moldavite, that shit's. I mean, no, it's okay. Moldavite is the stone that they talk about. It's the one, because a lot of people, believe it or not, there actually is something to the whole crystal energy thing. It's not just hooky, new age bull crap. It really is. There actually is something fucking to it. As crazy as it sounds. And I was into general mineral collecting when I was a young kid. Got out of it, kind of grew out of it and stuff. But then as my research into Rockwall started happening, I started bringing back all this stuff that I already knew about mineralogy and gemology and stuff, and had gone and done a little bit of mining as a kid and stuff on vacations, and went to the diamond mine in Arkansas with my grandparents when I was a teenager and found a fucking good sized diamond. I mean, it was awesome. I was one of those lucky people, and they gave me it was a good size one. It was a lot of money, man. For me, it was just like early '90s. So it was like $800. I think it was a lot of money for me at the time. But so after doing all the extensive research into the rock wall and identifying the minerals it's made out of, and then trying to find other places where these minerals could be, because if somebody truly made that out of those different materials, and the evidence undoubtedly shows that someone did, then those minerals would have had to have been quarried from somewhere. So this led me back into that world, and when I was going on the different trips and filming for the Lost Secrets of Ancient America films, a lot of the places that I went through were, have little shops and gift shops and stores and crystal shops everywhere. I mean, Arkansas, I went to ones in Arkansas, I went to one in Las Vegas, I went to one in several in Arizona, New Mexico. Arizona, New Mexico, they're on the sides of the highway even sometimes. You can go in there and just find fucking killer stuff, little Indian shops, killer crystals, man, good stuff, real cheap. So I started picking stuff up, and I started getting more into it, finding certain elements and specimens and stuff specifically for research purposes into the rock wall. And I just are noticing that crystals really over the past several years have gotten a lot more popular. And there was these two camps, were divided between, like, you'd have the metaphysical end of things where people want these crystals for metaphysical purposes. And if you go into any of these shops, they have now the metaphysical crystal shops, new age type shops. The thing that always was frustrating to me is they were marking up these crystals 4 or 5 times what they should be sold for, under the guise of their metaphysical properties. And I'm sitting there going, well, this is why people fucking think this shit's a scam, because you make it a scam. You know what I mean? I mean, of course people are going to fucking think there's a scam too when you're charging 5 times what this crystal should be valued at, and calling it, just using the metaphysical stuff that applies to it or whatever. And it's all subjective, but I tell you that moldavite, it's the one that makes true believers out of people. I remember recently my sister had on I think she had on a Moldavite ring or something. I may have given her a piece of Moldavite. It was something. And she was just saying, I just feel like I'm being lifted off the ground. I'm like, well, are you wearing anything else? I mean, she's like, no, not anything else. I'm like, because if you're wearing anything else, any other kinds of crystals with that, that's what you're feeling. You know, if you've been wearing it, it wasn't bothering you before, and all of a sudden now you're feeling this way, then you've introduced something else into the equation that's amplifying it. Like, especially anything that has quartz in it, you know, because quartz amplifies everything. And like, right as I said that, I could see kind of the light bulb go off in her head. She completely forgot. She reached down, as I said that, she reached down, pulled her necklace out that was down in her shirt, and pulled out and showed it to me. And she had a fucking quartz crystal on it. And I was like, boom, bazinga! Josh is fucking good. She was, I mean, that was even, you know, that was one of those moments. She just completely forgot and couldn't figure out why it was just making her feel that way. And that's the big thing. So, yeah, the amplification powers of quartz. Always remember that. You know, it's you know, it can be used. It's incredible what crystals can do. The healing power and just everything. And of course, you know, intent is a big thing. But anyway, the point is, I started seeing these shops charging all this extra money, seeing these people. But I would also go to Gem and Minerals shows, and if you even bring that kind of shit up at a Gem and Minerals show, they'll point you to the fucking door. You know, they're snobs about that. They don't even want to hear that shit about physical stuff at all. But both of these customer bases have extremely, you know, they have loyal customers. So and I eventually, you know, I would just do little local shows, and I sell online and stuff like that. I sell to friends. But I do want to eventually, you know, one day expand and open an actual brick and mortar shop, because that's my idea, is to have one end of the shop, but you know, have one crystal shop, but have one end of the shop that has customers and people that I know and trust that know the shit about the gemology side, the specimen side of it, working on one end of the store, and then have another end of the shop that's in a different room. And in that room, you'll have the metaphysical end of it, and you'll have people in there working that just cater towards metaphysical stuff, because that's the thing I've seen. Like I've nobody's done that yet. Nobody's put that idea yet together, and that's exactly what I do with my stuff. I cater to all ends. If you're somebody that doesn't give a fuck about metaphysical stuff, and you're looking for investments or you know, stuff that's going to increase in value, rare, hard to find stuff from all over the world, because I mean, we do have a lot of stuff like that. You know, like we have this dioptase specimen, it's like $300 or something. I mean, that it comes from the Tusamid mine in Africa, which is a closed mine. So oftentimes when we have a lot in that category. That's why they become valued, more valuable, is because some of these are in locations and come from locations like, what's a good example? In Missouri, there's this Sweetwater mine, and this one little spot where it's like this, I forget I read what they were, lead, I think it was. It's like a lead mine. And this particular lead mine in Missouri, it's the only place that they've ever pulled out this beautiful golden colored calcite that's encrusted generally with pyrite, you know, fool's gold. We've got several examples of those, and that's why those are so valuable. It's because the only ones that are available were pulled out when they were doing the lead mining there, and they actually don't do any lead mining there, so there aren't any, and it's a closed mine, so there aren't any more of these coming out. There's nowhere else to get them. So, you know, I cater to people like that. People are looking for high-end specimens, and we've got a lot in the high-end category. And then I also cater to people that like them for the metaphysical purposes or meditation and that as well, because, again, I've seen this just in my experience of collecting and going to different shops all around and going to the gem and mineral stores. You know, there is a huge, it's just if you're catering to one or the other, you're losing a whole bunch of business you could be getting. So why not cater to everybody? So that's what I try to do. And that's, you know, again, I don't have sponsors, and everything we do here, we don't have outside funding. We don't have to worry about the information. Believe me, folks, the stuff I've been telling you about for the last 3 or 4 days, do you think that any of this information, I wouldn't have even been able to get any of this out before they'd have been shutting me down if I'd have been on, you know, a major FM station. I was on major FM stations in the past, all across the country, lots of them. But again, it came down to that decision of, you know, do you want to do the show their way? because I mean, the thing about it is, if I had been making tons of money, if I was on a network at that time and I was making thousands of dollars, I probably would. Be honest with you, I probably would have made that decision. Probably would have just played the game. But when you're not making anything anyway, and the same amount of money, you're going to be making the same amount of money, regardless of whether you play by their rules or not. Because I wasn't getting. That's a fucked up thing, you know. I was supposed to be bound to these sponsors and doing what they wanted me to do. Yet I wasn't seeing $1 from these sponsors, and I was drowning. So it came down to that, really. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. If at that time I had been making money or something, I would have towed the line. But you'll never get this type of information because they just won't allow this stuff to come out, because sponsors are really picky about what these shows talk about, because they think people are going to then associate, even if you put a disclaimer and say, that the show doesn't reflect the views of the products and whatever, it's still there. When it comes down to these guys, man, they're just real shaky about it. That's why it's very difficult to even find, people and products and sponsors, that type of thing, to do that anyway. All right. What was I going to say? I don't know if I guess I'm done there. Yesterday on the show, we talked about the Queen stuff. I got people going fucking crazy. They want to know they want to know the whole story of Bohemian Rhapsody. Well, you'll get it, but we got, listen, we got to keep this thing going, man. I mean, we've got to be able to keep the network, the studio, all of this afloat, So I will tell it. But here's the thing. Some of you may have already figured this out, but I don't know if you haven't. But yesterday, we talked about the Khashoggi. Somebody online is saying that it's pronounced Khashoggi. Adnan Khashoggi. Khashoggi. You know what? Honestly, if you're probably new, you may be new to my work. Honestly, this is something that people haven't known about. Probably, well, you wouldn't know this if you hadn't been listening for a long time. But people that have been listening for a long time know the rule is with me, especially with these cocksuckers like that guy. I don't give a fuck about pronouncing their name wrong. Actually, I prefer to pronounce it wrong because I don't want to give them any more. These cocksuckers don't deserve any press. This guy is a scumbag. I didn't even mention the stuff with him. Dodi Fayed was his nephew, the one that was banging Princess Diana that was when she was assassinated. I mean, there's yet another connection. But we talked about, hey, listen, in the Queen song, Freddie Mercury says Khashoggi's ship. So that's, if you listen to the song, that's the way Freddie says it in there, in that song. So you have to excuse me. That's the way I learned how to pronounce it, because the first time I didn't know what a fucking Khashoggi was. Until, I'd heard that song. So, yeah, I could give a fuck if I'm pronouncing that dude's. I appreciate you correcting me, but I could give a shit. But this person apparently knows how to pronounce the name right, because she says in another post, Josh, we should talk. I'm not great at keeping up with YouTube comments because I get trolled so much. I met Bob Geldof. I worked for the nephew of Adnan Khashoggi, called Shabab Khashoggi, pronounced Cash Ogo, by the way, whatever that means. I lived in Porto Banalas, Marbella, in 1982, where Adnan regularly stayed on his yacht with the infamous parties. I worked for CIA and UAE, United Arab Emirates-funded BCCI, Bank of Credit and Commerce International, from 76 to 78. Woo! I'm a recovering MK Ultra super spy. LOL. PM me on Facebook if you can. Angela Power Disney, or check out my website. Okay. Well, thank you. Listen, I'm not going to call you. We're not going to talk and have a chit chat. I just don't do that with people at all. And I get 150 requests for it every week, just because. Listen, I've had 100 million people over the past 10 years. I've got the secrets to the Emerald Tablets. I got the secrets to the Illuminati. I got the secrets to this. Call me and talk to me, and I'll tell you all this. And I just say, look, I'm not going to call you and let you put mind control waves or locate, use location data to find where I'm at, and I'm not saying every person that wants to talk to me has that intention, but you understand I have to be aware of that kind of stuff. And it makes me, and the thing about it is, There's plenty of options for these people to get this information to. And I said, just type it up in an email, or everybody has a cell phone now, or a computer, laptop, or whatever. If you're typing on a computer, you have a way to record your voice. Every phone, iPhone, everything has voice recorders on them now. If you have information like that you want to get to me and you need to speak it and not type it, just use that. It can be long, if it's 2 hours, whatever. Just record it on a voice record thing. Check the sound, make sure it's good. I don't want to listen to 2 hours of you talking, being crackly. But they sound pretty good. You can record stuff on a computer with a little built-in microphone on a computer, even. Record that. If you have a Gmail account, upload it to Google Drive and send it to me, and I'll listen to what you have, and I'll respond to it on the show. But I'm not going to call you and have a personal one-on-one talk to you about this information that you supposedly have, especially when you preface it with stuff that he says I worked for the CIA. See, that's the other thing. Listen, yeah, I'd love to hear your story. I mean, I'm sure it's awesome. Lay it out in an MP3 for me and send it to me, But I'm gonna be point blank front and center to you. Nothing against you, Angela Power Disney. Somebody else said your name yesterday. That was strange. That's 2 days in a row. Somebody said hit up Angela Power Disney and she'll chip in $100 to your cause. And hey, that's great. Go to my website and chip that in. I'd love for you to do that, but I'm not gonna solicit. I'm not gonna go say, hey, can you contribute $100 because some guy that's on Facebook or on YouTube said to? Give me a break. So point blank, I'd love to hear your story, but honestly, once CIA, always CIA. That's facts. Maybe you don't work for them now in the same capacity you did before, but let's be clear, you still have a CIA security clearance that you will have until the day you die, regardless of whether you are currently working for a contractor for the Central Intelligence Agency or not. That's a fact. I know the rest of these dumbasses out here that talk about conspiracies and everything else, these new jacks. Look, every day and every year that goes by, I become more, it's just, my knowledge base grows and I become more and more hip to all of the tricks. There's so many of them and people try their damnedest. Somebody the other day, you should go on this radio show. You should go on this. Because this radio show had contacted me a few months ago and never contacted them back. And another listener contacted me, hey, this guy said he tried to get you to get on his radio show and you didn't respond back to him. You should go on his show. And I said, well, did you bother to do anything about this guy? Because I don't say yes to, I get asked to do a lot of shows. It can be an interview, but I don't say yes to everything. And it's funny because this person, she's going to think I'm shaming her now. I'm not really shaming her. I'm just being honest. I'm 100%, I'm just telling the truth how it happened. This is how it happened. But it's funny because this person talks about Michael Aquino a lot. I'm like, this person that wanted me to go on the show interviewed Michael Aquino on their fucking radio show last year. I mean, give me a goddamn break. You don't get Michael Aquino on your show. You really? I mean, obviously that proves me even more correct if you watch the Secret Volume 2, my latest Spellcasters. I've been exposing Aquino and his connection to all this stuff and Jones, the rest for many years. So, anyway, yesterday we talked about Khashoggi, Cash OG, Cash OG is how she's saying you say it, Cash OG. I don't give a fuck that guy anyway. I don't give a fuck. I'd rather not know how to pronounce these cocksuckers' names just to disrespect them even more. I've had that attitude for a long time on the show. I don't remember who it is. There's been a lot like that through the years. And I've pronounced a lot of them wrong intentionally, and I'll always get emails. Oh, you pronounced that guy's name wrong. No, I didn't. I just don't care enough about the cocksucker to learn how to say his stupid name. Because if I'm having to talk about him, so the people I care to talk about, I get their name correct. Anyway, so if you see my film Spellcasters, this will make sense to you. If you haven't seen it yet, it won't make as much sense to you until you see it. But nonetheless, we talked about Khashoggi's ship. We talked this massive yacht. I'm gonna have to go back through my Queen archives and find this. There's footage. There's so many Queen documentaries that they all run together, and I can't remember what footage is in which one because I've literally seen everything. everything. I mean, bootlegs and everything else, everything there is. And in one of the videos, I think it's one of Freddie Mercury's birthday parties, or which they still celebrate to this day in Montreux. They have big parties and stuff. But there's footage, and this is right around 1986 is when this footage was filmed, right around their last tour. And there's footage of what now, after I've pieced all this together, I believe is actually Khashoggi's ship, this massive yacht that had a nightclub built in this fucking thing. I don't know. I swear there's footage of Queen in this massive ship, and there's like cross dressers and trannies and everything else around, of course. And there's a dance club. You can see they show people dancing in this thing. I swear it's on the boat. But anyway, so I talked about that yesterday. You heard yesterday's show. We discussed all the connections with him and Alex Jones, GCN Radio Network, and also the connections to the, again, it all goes back to these ties back to the attack on Africa and the rest of it, and that ties in with the story of Bohemian Rhapsody, which I'll get to in a future broadcast. But it all ties in with that. It all goes back to this decimation of Africa, and there's a whole political stuff that's been going on for years and years and years. And Khashoggi and Jones, the listener pointing out this thing with Jones and the idea that that the HIV virus was passed to Charlie Sheen through Jones and these military guys. The death from blood, and it even has a drop of blood on it. That was a very good pick. And then that guy, telling me about that and watching that video and seeing Charlie using the phrase, the Scientology phrase, fair game, and then finding out he's the fucking MC with Jenna Elfman at the 9/11 first responders, the thing that Trump gave money to. Well, I know that I don't know any other way to say this, folks. I right after the broadcast ended last night, I started looking. I was like, well, because I had heard stories of what happened to that ship. Because Khashoggi got in debt, and he gave the boat, the ship, the big yacht, to the Sultan of Brunei as collateral for some massive loan. So he decked it out. He spent $85 million decking this out, and then his collateral on this loan. Guess who bought? See, I was wondering. I was like, well, who owned Khashoggi's ship when he was when Queen partied on it? That was a question I had. Did they party on it when he was there? When he owned it, or was it later? Come to find out, it actually was. According to Khashoggi, he says, we had apartments in London and New York, several floors of the Olympic Tower on Fifth Avenue, a succession of chalets in Gostad homes in Somerset, Paris, Cannes, 2 ranches in East Africa, and a lavish property in Marbella, which is exactly where that Disney lady before said she was at, backing up her story, with 5,000 acres. There we entertained people like Liz Taylor, Freddie Mercury, boom. So that's by his own words saying that he entertained Freddie Mercury. So then I wanted to find out, okay, so the Sultan of Brunei had it as collateral. Guess who buys it after him? From the Sultan. You'll never guess. Tying it all back around, folks. Wrapping it all up. Think about all the things I've talked about. Wrapping it all back up, tying it, put a nice big bow on it, and shebanga, boom, Donald Trump. Let that sink in for a motherfucking minute. Again, you know, the Jones cocksuckers and whoever else, they'll all tell you all those things that I've talked about in these last 4 shows, man. I'm going to have to put these up, make these available as like one pack or something, because I've never done this before in all the years of doing the show. I've never had multiple shows like this connect together with the same topic. Khashoggi ship was owned. Check this out. So there's 2 stories here. This actually came out last year, and I didn't even hear about this. And nobody pointed it out to me, so I guess nobody else heard about it either. Donald Trump admits doing business with arms dealer Adnan Khashoggi and Sultan of Brunei. Donald Trump admitted in 1988 that he purchased a yacht originally meant for Saudi arms dealer Adnan Khashoggi through the Sultan of Brunei. And there's even video of it. I guess this was part of the Trump leaks videos. Trump made an admission during an interview on Late Night with David Letterman. Khashoggi is known for his role as a key middleman in the Iran-Contra scandal. Boom. See, that's how I connected it back. Because I'd already connected it back to Trump and all that stuff, and we already had the Scientology connection. But boom, we connected right back into the CMP because, of course, we had many CMP members like Oliver North, who was a Council for National Policy member during Iran-Contra, and also Gun Owners of America, Larry Pratt, another Jones guest, who even openly called for Contra-style militias to start up in the United States, and he was a part of the gun-running operations that were sending the guns down to South America and arming Contras, and also exchanging weapons for the cocaine that was then brought back over and sold on American streets, made into crack cocaine to fuel Bush's phony drug war, which is really the United States importing these drugs, putting them on the streets, and making billions of dollars. And it continues to this day. So, I actually found the 1990 New York Times article. It says, Mr. Trump bought the Trump Princess, as the well-known yacht is called, for $30 million in 1987 from the Sultan of Brunei, who had secured it as collateral for a multi-million-dollar loan to Adnan Khashoggi. Mr. Khashoggi, a Saudi Arabian business dealer, reportedly spent $85 million to build and outfit the vessel with such features as a helicopter landing pad, a screening room, an 800-film library, a discotheque, this is it, a hospital, sleeping quarters for a crew of 52, bathrooms of hand-carved onyx, and refrigerators that carry a 3-month supply of food for 100 people. The yacht has 14 fuel tanks that allow it to travel 8,500 miles without refueling. Boom. And you motherfuckers still think this guy is a real American. Yeah. See, I mean, all this stuff makes sense now. And when you see these connections with Jones and all the rest of it, I mean, it's clear they've been planning this stuff with Trump for a long time. Man, oh man, oh man. I've been a lifelong Queen fan, and I just would never have dreamed all this stuff would have connected like this. And one thing I was going to mention yesterday with the whole Bob Geldof thing, this person mentions Bob Geldof. I mean, obviously, regardless of whether you believe what this person says or not, and I believe they're telling the truth. I don't think they're making it sound legit. But I also know that there's no exiting the CIA, no matter what they say. There's no X or used to, you know. That doesn't mean I don't believe somebody, but anybody that tries to tell me that's not the case, I don't trust them. Anyway, so she says she met Bob Geldof and she worked for the nephew of Khashoggi. And again, this ties back to the whole Africa thing. Okay, so prior to Queen playing at the Live Aid Festival in 1985, which, by the way, it wasn't my first. I can remember driving around with my mom. My mom used to have this like baby blue Camaro. This is back in the days before you had car seats, fucking seatbelts, any of that bullshit. I was like 5, I think 5 or 6. And he used to ride around the center console of her car while she'd speed around this little fucking Camaro, Trans Am, whatever it was. And I can remember hearing another one by Sedust on the radio constantly. And that would have been like 1981. So yeah, I was like 5 or 6. But I didn't know, I just remember hearing that song, did not know until later that it was Queen or anything. Another time I was in my cousin's room and she was a teenager and I saw this album, it just Queen, News of the World, and this scary monster reaching in after people. It's just terrified the shit out of me. But up until, being a kid in the 80s and stuff, I didn't like music, and I didn't even, when I was a little small kid, my dad always said I used to, anytime I get and my grandparents said this too, I'd get in a car from the time I was like, 2 to 5, and I always make people listen to the classical channel. I don't even like classical music, but it was something, maybe something from a past life. Kids, you have that stuff left over in your system, when you're very small like that, and sometimes it fades out. But it's just very strange that I was obsessed with listening to classical music when I was a little kid. But it wasn't until I saw Queen at Live Aid in 1985 that I thought music was fucking great. There's a real, other than the fact that they did put on an insane performance at Live Aid, Queen, and really was, it's called the greatest live performance of all time for a reason. Because they were not doing good as a band at that point. Things were not going too well for them. They, on the heels of the Hot Space album we talked about yesterday, they decided to kind of go back to basics and try to get back to what Queen really was. They recorded the album The Works. I like that album. A lot of people don't like that album. I think it's great. I think it has all the elements you come to expect from Queen and has some, but anything that was made in the 80s period is going to be very much of the 80s. Even some of my favorite bands like Rush produced some stinker records and stinker songs in the 80s because things were changing, the sounds were changing, the recording equipment, synthesizers, all that stuff, getting more digital, brittle, crisp coming in. Changed the whole landscape of sound, and if you didn't keep up with it, you were just going to get left behind at that point. But they so they released this album, The Works, and it, like most of their records, it didn't do much in America, but did pretty well overseas, and had some, I like that record, had some great songs on it, I thought. But during that time, or the Works tour, there was a massive ban going on within the music industry for musicians boycotting playing shows in South Africa, specifically Sun City in South Africa, where they have these casinos and rock shows and stuff at. And of course, if you don't know that whole history of that, you weren't around or alive. I was a kid, but I still remember hearing about apartheid and stuff. These supposedly, the thing about it is that, kind of like today where they try to spark up stuff with this, of course, real racism does exist, but a lot of what is out there now is perpetuated and puffed up, and it's not real. So there was this big, massive boycott of musical artists across the board in the musical world not playing in South Africa. Queen had never played in South Africa, and they decided to say, they got asked to come and play there. They didn't actively seek it out. They got asked to come play there. And they decided to do it. Which led to severe backlash. You can even go and read what Geldof said about Queen at the time. There's still quotes you can go and read. Queen was absolutely lambasted by the music industry. There was people that said they didn't want to promote them. They wouldn't, promoters wouldn't promote them anymore. Play their songs on the radio. It was a huge, severe backlash. And Freddie Mercury's comment on it was, well, look, if I didn't go and play a show at every place in the world where I didn't agree with their politics, there would be literally nowhere else on earth that I could play. And boy, I think that was one of the I think that comment when anything else did it. Because, here's the thing, Freddie came from a very strict Zoroastrian religious background. He was born in Zanzibar. and then moved to Africa or not moved to India as a small child, then back to Zanzibar. And one of the threads throughout all the Queen albums, all the way through, from the very beginning, from the first album, all the way through, if you study Zoroastrianism as I have, we've talked about Zoroastrianism in the past on the show with King Darius and the Behistun inscription in Iran, that whole thing. It's a fascinating religion that definitely ties in with fucking, extraterrestrials and seeing life on this planet. It's definitely an extraterrestrial type of religion. It doesn't get talked about a lot. And definitely a lot of evidence to support that its adherents have been systematically eliminated off the face of the planet, and they've, for many years, have tried to keep Zoroastrianism off of the radar throughout the world, when you've seen other ancient religions flourish. But throughout all Queen's records, if you listen to specifically songs that Freddie Mercury wrote, throughout all the records, he is referencing religious undertones that relate to Zoroastrianism through every record. Some records, it's not as some songs it's not as overt as it is, but especially the first time, there are amazing amounts of Christian and Zoroastrian. There's a song called Jesus on the very first Queen album. But all throughout that, even in the second Queen album, Queen 2, that's my number one tip top, absolute favorite of all time is Queen 2. That's my favorite. But through all the way through. On the first album, there's a song called Jesus. On the very last album that they did with Freddie, they did one after he was dead, a posthumous album, but Innuendo. There's a song called All God's People. Throughout this whole thing, he was not overtly, but he was slightly, all through his whole entire career, even though he never talked about it and wouldn't even talk about his upbringing in Zoroastrianism at all. For some reason that nobody really knows, he was constantly feeding that into the stream of his musical output on every single record. But unless you study Zoroastrianism, know about what the belief structure of it is, you wouldn't even pick it up. And again, I think this is part of the reason why he was assassinated, given the AIDS virus, and killed, and made an example of. Not only that, they needed somebody that somebody famous, somebody who was a musician, somebody who was recognizable, that they could use to create this, $1 trillion industry by the medical industrial complex in order to create these phony cures. And as I talked about yesterday, actually are what kills you and not the virus, the supposed virus that they make up. So when they decided to play Sun City in Africa, I mean, there's a quote, I can't remember, I don't have it right in front of me. There's a quote from Bob Geldof where he says some nasty shit about them. And a lot of people did. They went there and they said, look, they went there and played, and there were not any segregated audiences. That's what blew the whole thing open. Again, as I've talked about as we've talked about in these shows, we've been talking about these similar comments these similar topics in the last 3 or 4 shows. History gets written by the victors once again. So Queen goes there and plays to the ire of the entire musical industry, and guess what? No apartheid is going on. None of that's going on down there. Queen witnesses zero segregation. They even said that they had, I want to say there was another show that somebody else had played. It was like, they weren't, obviously an imported rock band from America or the UK like these other ones. They were an African band or something. But I in one of the interviews, it may have been Roger Taylor from Queen, somebody from the band says that they had Queen had sent people down there in advance to another concert that was at this Sun City casino where they had these shows at. And they sent somebody down there prior to Queen arriving to play, and there was no apartheid going on there either. There was no separation. There was blacks and whites together watching these concerts. So even though I heard that kind of stuff in the past, I never knew why it made sense. Now I understand. That's why they didn't want musicians to go down there and play. Because it was going to expose their agenda. That's why they were so mad at Queen, because Queen went down there and played it, and that was obviously not going on. And it's funny how you never heard about that again. They just said eventually, oh, it just petered out or whatever, and the part that just ended. But the real reality of it is they went down there and exposed the fact, and that pissed off a lot of these fucking tip-top, big-time motherfuckers in the CIA, MI6, British intelligence, all of them that connect and weave back into these black operations that then feed into the music industry, the movie industry, the rest of it. So that was a huge thing. And Geldof said some nasty, nasty stuff. All of a sudden, the next year, it was about a year, I guess, maybe less than a year, he gets the Live Aid thing going. Queen says they're not going to play. And then he goes and begs Queen that they have to play, and tells them that look, you have to do this for these starving kids, blah, blah, this, that, and the other. They were kind of fading out as a band at that time. They were, Freddie was increasingly, for many, many years. See, Brian and Freddie had a lot of problems and argued and fought for many, many years. Brian May's my favorite guitar player of all time. I think he's in the top 3 best guitar players ever to live. But now when you see him talk about Freddie Mercury, it's all, sunshine and lollipops and all good. But the fact of the matter is, for somebody who, if you weren't somebody that followed the band and followed the interviews through all the years, they were not getting along for a whole lot of years for a variety of reasons. One of which was that, the whole Freddie Mercury being gay thing, and the whole image, with rock stars and musicians and stuff like that. Because Brian is actually a very conservative type of guy. And also the fact that, rock music was Freddie Mercury's entryway into being, a massive global star, which was his main goal. But not very long into the career of Queen, I would say by the third record, really, you started to see, with Sheer Heart Attack, you started to see that Freddie specifically, even though this, everybody else wanted this to be a rock band, Freddie increasingly was wanting the band to be something else. The first hint you saw that, of course, is the song Killer Queen on the third album, which was, their first really decent hit. Great song, fantastic song. But when you put it up against some of the stuff that was on Queen too, obviously this is a different direction. That increased as the years went by, to the point where like a song like Don't Stop Me Now, which was a big hit, Brian May wasn't even on there. He put a solo on there later, but he wasn't in there during the sessions because Freddie told me he didn't want him to play on it, and it pissed him off. And then of course they started doing Hot Space, and they're using drum machines and synthesizers. Not really a lot of room for guitar in there. Although Brian found a way, as he always does, to shoehorn in the Red Special in there, and it's it's great. But yeah, I mean, there was a lot of issues between him and Brian for a lot of years. Everybody else seemed to get along pretty good. The only, big contention in that band was always between those two. And back in 93, I remember I was like 17. Brian May came out, I think in 92, he came out with his first solo album called Back to the Light. And he came to Dallas and played this small theater. I'd only been to 1 or 2 shows. I hadn't been to that many shows in my life at that point, maybe 2 or 3. It was one of the best shows I've ever seen. I got to see him solo. I had tickets right. There were like those, it was an old school theater, and you have those boxes where Lincoln got shot up on the side. I was in one of those because me and my cousin snuck down there because nobody was sitting in there, and somebody came and asked us, well, hey, how'd y'all get those tickets down there? They're like, oh, we won them on the radio station. They're like, oh, okay. They didn't even question us. It was fantastic. But I went back and listened. I was listening to some of that recently, It's something in light of all this this new information I found. There was a lyric in this song, because the name of the album is called Back to the Light. And it's really, a lot of songs are dealing with Brian kind of, coming back as a musician after, the death of Freddie and all the stuff he'd gone through during that time. And many, many years they knew about. He was sick, but never said anything. There's definitely a lot of weird stuff surrounding his death. this statement that was put, because Freddie never publicly admitted he had HIV and AIDS, because a lot of people say that he actually didn't. But the day before he died, there was a statement issued in his name to the press announcing that he had HIV AIDS, and within 24 hours he was dead. But he never publicly came out himself and ever said he had it. And one of the guys, I think his name was David, was it David Richards? I really wanted to interview this guy. He engineered, I guess, the last 3 Queen records. Miracle, the one that would have had Cash Yogi's ship on it. Yeah, he engineered that. Innuendo and Made in Heaven. And there's a clip, there's a documentary that came out a few years ago, most recent Queen documentary. They had a couple called Days of Our Lives, which is one of their songs, but I think it was called Days of Our Lives, the newest Days, not the old one that had Axl Rose in it from the 90s, but there's a newer one. I think it was on BBC a couple of years ago. It's on DVD and Blu-ray now. There's this clip of David Richards who engineered those, and he recently, I guess in the past year or so, just out of the blue had some uncurable cancer and died. Actually, it was a year after that documentary came out, he died. And it's, I was already onto this stuff, and I saw this interview, and it fucking chills me to the core every time. Even before he died, it chilled me to the core. And then he died mysteriously, suddenly. Most people find out they have cancer and they live for a period of time. This guy just fucking died overnight, and then they found out he goes from being not sick to dying, and he swears up and down to the point where he's almost crying saying this in this documentary. And I went back and watched it, and I said, man, that's what got him killed right there. He's looking dead in the camera. I mean, dead in the camera. And he's saying, look, there was nothing wrong with him. He was not sick. He was as fit as anybody you can imagine. The man was not sick at all. He came in, he laid these songs down. Next thing I know, I hear 2 weeks later, they say he's dead. But you could just tell he knew something. He knew some kind of information. But in that Brian May solo album that came out in the early 90s, right after Queen broke up, or initially when Freddie died, Back to the Light, the first song on that album is called Resurrection. And it's really about, it's a Brian song. It's really him, talking about coming back and, making a comeback or whatever after losing his band. And I remember this song, I liked the album, listened to it when I saw him when I was like 16 or 17, but, the lyrics, I didn't know about any of this stuff then and never thought there was any kind of conspiracy with the whole Freddie Mercury thing at that time because I was a teenager. But I did always wonder, the lyrics always kind of seemed kind of weird to that song, and I went and listened to that song and pulled the lyrics, and I found another clue that really, really indicates to me that what I've known for a long time. Brian knew something. He knows something or knew something about the whole Freddie AIDS thing, and some of the lyrics in that song really, really tell you that. If you do take the time like I did to go and look up what these words mean, because he says, this is crazy. He says, I'm a victim of a conspiracy. I'm a victim of a conspiracy from a corpo derelictum. I'm going to fly and be free. Now, when you hear that, I'm a victim of a conspiracy, when you hear that in a song like that, and there's loud guitars and drums behind it, I mean, the lyrics just go by you quick, and you don't even think about what it means or what it could mean. But break that down. What would be? Who would you have to be a victim of a conspiracy, right? Well, okay, think about that. First off, you'd have to have one individual that had a conspiracy committed on them, right? And then by proxy of them having this conspiracy committed against them, you yourself are also victimized by that conspiracy. You see what I mean? I'm a victim of a conspiracy. That's what Brian May was. He's telling you right there, I'm the victim of a conspiracy. Because, his life was ruined and his career came to an abrupt halt. And, they wanted to go on for many more years and would have because of this, AIDS conspiracy against Freddie. And then the next line is even more telling. Because he says, I'm a victim of a conspiracy from a corpo derelictum. I'm going to fly and be free. Now, that's Latin, right? Okay. So corpo derelictum. Well, first think about what words you're talking about. The corpo is corpse, the body, right? Like habeas corpus. What is the term? So it's from a corpo derelictum. So that means a derelict corpse. That's literally what that term means. That fucking freaked me out when I looked. Because I don't know Latin, so it never dawned on me before. So I put together the victim of a conspiracy thing. Think, okay, that's exactly what Brian May would be. From a derelict corpse, I'm going to fly and be free. See, if you said that in English, people would go, "What the fuck does that mean?" Because derelict means in a very poor condition as a result of disuse and neglect. Well, I mean, think about that in terms of Freddie and how he died. From a corpo derelictum, from a derelict corpse, a body in very, very poor condition from disuse and neglect, I'm going to fly and be free. And then the name of his AIDS charity they set up after the Freddie Mercury tribute concert for all that money to go to it, probably didn't, like the Geldof thing, is the Mercury Phoenix Trust. And that's what he's saying. From a corpo derelictum, I'm going to fly and be free. He's talking about, like the phoenix rising out of the ashes. It dies, and then out of the ashes it rises. That's what he's saying there in referencing Freddie Mercury. And I got to tell you, man, with this Cassiope stuff and all the rest of it, I mean, that was that. And then what I know about, Bohemian Rhapsody, it just, that's when I realized, oh, holy shit here. It's strange, man. It really is. Because the John Deacon, the bass player, he quit the music business completely. They've all gone on and kept playing and stuff, but he quit completely. He won't even do interviews. He's become a total recluse. And I've always suspected, just based on videos and stuff I've seen in the past, that John Deacon was actually homosexual. I mean, he had a wife, had lots of kids. But, man, if you watch him in a lot of the videos and stuff, it's pretty clear he was homosexual. And I've heard a lot of stuff in interviews. Brian said once in an interview that there was something about Freddie Mercury's death that affected John in such a way that he won't even, he still runs the thing is, he still runs all their business affairs and whatnot. He always has. But I suspected John Deacon knew something about the real truth of what happened. And that's why he's, he doesn't do interviews or, somebody like that. If you're retiring, you don't do anything else, There's a lot of people who want to interview John Deacon. He won't do it, but doesn't talk about any of that stuff, of course. So I'm just flabbergasted still by that. Because I've heard that song a lot of times, man. But that whole victim of a conspiracy and from a corpo derelictum, I'm gonna fly and be free, ride the night into the morning sun. I mean, it's totally like, that's what he's talking about. It just didn't make sense to me when I first heard it, because it was like, I don't understand why I never heard the term conspiracy about anything be used, even if it was in reference to love or something in a Queen song. You know what I mean? And here's Brian on the first song out of the gates referencing that. And there was a lot of stuff. That Paul Printer guy I mentioned yesterday, very interesting character. There's not very much you can find on this guy. There was like 3 or 4 people who were supposedly said to be lovers of Freddie Mercury who had died of AIDS before he did. And they all had connections to this Paul Printer guy. And one of them had connections back to Russian intelligence. It was some guy that was supposedly one of Freddie Mercury's lovers that died of AIDS, and it may have been connected to Cassiope and whatnot. Because don't get him wrong, he's tied to Vladimir Putin and the rest of it. And of course we have the Trump connection there, but it's just, there's so much of this stuff, and I've been connecting this musical stuff, and I never thought that my musical knowledge would ever, at any point, not to this degree, merge over and go into my, my other work. But I'm so glad it makes so much sense to me now. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy to look back on your life and realize it's, the stuff you were doing when you were younger, because, you always hear that from older people when you're younger. Yeah, that's never going to lead to anything. And that's all I ever heard, And they were all wrong. Sorry to have to tell you. Every last goddamn one of them. Teachers, parents, grandparents, everything that I've ever been into and was into that everybody else always thought was foolish or silly or whatever else has served me as an adult. It continues to serve me as an adult in ways I never expected. And none of the stuff I learned in school has ever served me as an adult. So again, that's a real testament to life. One day, not anytime soon, maybe in another 10 years, I'm telling you what, one day I'm going to write my life story. I'm going to write a book, and oh my God, there will be movies made into it. Most people would not even believe it. It's like Forrest Gump level of my life. I'm not kidding you. One day I'm going to lay all this stuff out and write a book. It's just going to blow people's minds. And I'm not done. I'm still, the story still continues. I just, it just makes sense to why I've collated. I've always been that way, anything that I've ever been into. I'm not Asperger's or anything. I'm not on the fucking spectrum. People always feel that all the time, because I guess people who are Asperger's or, no, I've been tested for that stuff, man. Because when I was a kid, I went through some traumatic shit as a young kid, as a lot of people have and stuff. But so, it caused me to kind of go within myself for a lot of years. And I used to not talk at all, express how I feel, and I would keep everything bottled up, and I would never say things. And, eventually after years and years of doing therapy, really honestly, not therapy, but therapy on myself through, psychedelics and stuff when I was younger, through, through different, be it mescaline or psilocybin and that kind of stuff. All these studies have come out now saying that it, cures PTSD, and for years they've known this stuff does, and it really, I have to tell you, it honestly has. I really had a lot of childhood trauma things and PTSD type things of stuff that happened to me, and trust issues and stuff, and the ability to, I just wouldn't talk about things, and I cured myself of it. And the biggest testament of that since I've been doing the show is the fact that I've started doing the show in the first place. Because anybody will tell you, I'm not a big talker. Everybody thinks I do a radio show, I must be running my mouth like this 24/7, and I don't. I never have. And I never wanted to, I never set out to be a radio talk show host, and I never set out for this to be. I only did it because somebody suggested, my brother suggested, oh, you should do a radio talk show. Yeah, you're right, I should. And give me a year, and I'll be taking on Alex Jones in his time slot. I even liked Alex Jones when I said this. I don't know why I fucking said this. I said, give me a year, and I'll be taking on Alex Jones in his time slot, head to head. 9 months later, that happened. Not a year later, 9 months later. 9 months later, I was going head to head with Jones, and I even got him taking off his big Central Texas flamethrower, 50,000 watt, 100,000 watt big flamethrower down there for 6 or 7 months, and they broadcasted the global reality for 3 hours every day, an hour off in the middle of it to play polka music. And eventually, Jones had to shit $30,000 of his own money out of his own pocket to pay the guy that ran the radio station off to take my show off, because, they were a fledgling little station. And the guy said, Josh, I like you and I prefer your show, but, he's paying me $30,000. I go, well, I can't compete with that. But just the fact that fat fucking enchilada eating motherfucker had to shit $30,000 out of his fucking ass to get my show off. I mean, listen. You go ahead and hand me the legend crown now for that alone. Much less all the other shit. I mean, come on. I think it's safe to say at this point, nobody has done more damage to that son of a bitch than me, and I own that. So anyway, all right, folks, we're flat out of time, and we have less than 24 hours left to get our operating costs covered. So again, theglobalreality.com. Go there and make your contribution and help us get this covered. We're out of time, and I'm planning on doing hopefully another update broadcast before 3 p.m. tomorrow when we have to reach our goal to update our progress. But please go there, and we can't continue, and we can't go on with that if we don't reach our goal, folks. That's just all there is to it. We'll see you next time. Take care.